Welcome to State of Ed, a podcast about education inside the classroom and out. My name is Marc.
And I'm Nick Simone.
How you doing today, Nick?
Doing pretty well. A couple of days before the school year begins. How about you?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, we have a heat wave that's going on across the country, and we're certainly feeling it here in the Northeast. But the real discomfort that I'm feeling at night is not the heat, but it's knowing that we're about to open up school in a week, and for our teachers and students will come in a few days after that, and it's just running through all of those lists in your head, trying to figure out if you've covered everything and if you've gotten to take care of everything before it's too late. And so the sleepless nights have already begun. I don't know about you.
Well, I think our guest is already ahead of us, so probably have some more insight.
Well, it's a perfect segue to introduce our guest. We are very fortunate tonight to have with us Dr. LaTonya Harris, and she is an assistant principal at Burbank Elementary School in Hampton, Virginia, and a proud grad of Norfolk State University. And from having a friend who attended medical school down there, I think I got the pronunciation right. I used to butcher it. And a former elementary school teacher and tech specialist and instructional specialist. And we're going to ask her about all of those things and more. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Harris.
Thank you.
Did you lose a bet, and is that why you became an assistant principal, or is that something that you elected to do voluntarily? How did you find yourself in administration after starting off as an elementary school teacher?
Wow. How did I find myself in administration? Well, I will say, as far as getting my master's degree, I went in with some friends who were all interested in becoming administrators. At the time, really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Um, I was thinking along the lines of getting my master's in special education. Wasn't quite certain. And I decided to join my friends, and we studied educational leadership at Regent University. Um, my mother was very proud of that. She was a principal at the time, and she had been telling me all along, "You're gonna go into education. You're gonna become a principal. I just
Mm-hmm.
know it." Um, but it certainly wasn't what I had sought when I started college. I thought I was going to become a athletic trainer for professional athletes, and I'm
Oh,
going to
nice.
study kinesiology. That was what I dreamed, but my mother kept telling me, "No, you're going into education." Um, and then when we finished the master's program at Regent, we were just thinking, "Okay, are we going to continue? Do you want to maybe think about PhD or EDD?" And
Mm-hmm.
again, I was not quite sure. But I did. I joined my friends, and I'm glad I did. And it helps to go in with a support group. It really does.
And your mother predicted all of this for you?
Uh, she was basically my cheerleader
Mm.
along the way. And along the way, letting me know that she saw this in
How is she with lottery numbers? Can she
me.
predict those as well?
She's good. And I'm not
What
talking
were,
about lottery numbers, but she
well, what
has
were the
predicted a
qualities
lot
that
of
she
things.
what were the qualities that she saw that made her say right off the bat that all of those other things that you had been thinking about were not necessarily going to be your fate?
I guess in childhood, watching me as far as how I conducted myself, I was pretty much that kid that was very competitive, always trying to be in charge, um, a tomboy. I was that girl in the neighborhood who played football and would put on a dress and get girly and have my tennis shoes on, but I can get down with the boys. Um, but yeah, just those qualities. And then seeing my mother as a teacher, visiting her school, helping her get ready. I used to play school with my friends and cousins, and I guess it was just a part of me. My grandmother was the neighborhood babysitter.
Mm.
I was very much a part of that and helping babysit. But just still in my mind, did not think that I was going to go into education.
How did you find the challenge of completing your advanced degrees while working as a professional? And how did you just, I know it's a lot, but just
Oh yeah,
generally,
oh yeah,
were you happy with the programs and how they prepared you?
yes. Wow, I delivered my daughter 2 days after I got my master's.
Oh my
Um,
God. Wow.
yeah, they did not want me to walk.
Oh my
Um,
God.
because number one, it was hot outside and I looked like I was about to pop, but I was determined that I was going to walk across that stage. And while working on my doctorate degree, I had a baby, my daughter,
Wow.
and
Wow.
um, she became ill. And I thought I was going to quit. I didn't think I was going to be able to hang in there. She ended up getting Kawasaki disease. I don't know if you
Oh my
heard of
God.
that.
Mm-hmm.
John Travolta's son had it.
Yeah.
And I had to spend 2 weeks in the hospital with her and was still studying, keeping up with my coursework, and very grateful to have professors who were very understanding and worked with me, and a team of folk who were very supportive. We did a lot of group activities, and I was in a face-to-face class program, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
It was called a cohort. None of it was online. It was all face-to-face, and I think that made a huge difference with everything that I was going through. Yeah, I had 3 kids,
Oh my
um,
God.
and working full time, and it was difficult. And then at that time, my first marriage, it was very difficult. And I will say that my commitment to the program, I do believe, had negatively impacted my relationship,
Hmm.
which did result in a divorce. But I continued through the program because this is something that I really wanted to do.
Wow. That's
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh, I mean, we're actually going through Nick and I a PhD program right now. We're a little more than halfway through.
Oh, awesome. I hope I didn't, rain on you about the
No, no,
divorce
no.
and everything. I
No,
apologize.
I'm filling out my drop papers as you're telling the story. We totally empathize and sympathize
Yeah.
simultaneously. And I know that I'm not going through everything that you were going
Yeah.
through, and I feel overwhelmed at times. So I can only imagine magnifying
Yeah.
that and factoring in all of the additional pressures and the situations that you were finding yourself in. I
Oh
can only
yeah.
imagine how you had the determination and perseverance to go through with all of
It
that
was a
and see it
challenge.
to the end.
It was a challenge. And I will say, um, when we went to orientation, there were so many people there. And our cohort started out, because there were cohorts across the nation,
Hmm.
but we had to go to Nova Southeastern University for the orientation in Florida. We also had to do our residency there. Um, but there were so many people, and with our cohort, there were 32, and they told us, um, they're not going to be 32 of you to finish.
Oh my God.
And we're thinking like, wow, that's pretty
Are they
rough,
talking to me? Right? Exactly.
and we felt that their eyes were on us, um, because we felt like, okay, here I am sitting here with this baby, and my friend also. I mean, just our situations. I'm not going to get all into that, but we were
Hmm.
thinking, man, are they talking to us? Um, and then it just motivated us to prove everybody wrong, and it
Hmm.
really made us want to push through that program. And we chose the advanced track so that we could try to get out within 3 years. And out of the 32, three of us, all women, were able to finish the advanced track,
Wow.
and everyone else had not. There were people who were still in the program trying to push through.
Hmm.
Some of our friends were able to finish in 5 years, and some did not finish. But I was just very much motivated to get through that program because I felt like their eyes were on us to basically say, you guys, you're not going to finish. So that was our motivation. And then talking to people who had completed the program, asking for tips and suggestions. And the biggest advice that I received was, do not argue with the people on your dissertation committee. Whatever
Write
they
that
tell you
down,
to
Nick.
do, just do it. Just do it. Don't argue
Wow.
with them. Process will go much smoother if you just do what they tell you to do.
What was your
But
dissertation topic?
working mothers, and how they balance that work life. And it was a qualitative study where I had interviewed all of these moms, and this was something that was very curious to me,
Sure.
and how women were able to make it through, and balance those full time jobs and going to
Mm.
school. Um, so yeah, I,
Did
it
you
was
stay
wonderful.
within Did you stay within Virginia, like
Yes,
local T? Okay,
yes, yes, within the Hampton Roads region, the seven
okay,
cities,
yeah.
if you're familiar.
Well, to transition into Virginia, can I just ask a quick policy question? I know Virginia never took part in the Common Core learning
Hmm.
standards,
Hmm.
which is, in elementary schools in New York has been a very big deal. But you have your own, what, standards of learning in Virginia?
Yeah, the
So,
standards of learning. Yes,
so as that was, I assume, while you were an elementary teacher, correct? You went through that?
yes.
I mean, how did that impact your instruction and how you approach the classroom? How much do people
Hmm.
in Virginia even talk about Common Core?
Hmm.
Do you place as much of an emphasis on testing as we do?
Well, of course, everyone wants their children to pass the standards of learning assessments in May, the big SOL test.
Right.
And of course, we have pacing guides and we have a curriculum that we have to adhere to. But I don't want you to think that we don't have any autonomy. We do
Okay.
have lesson plans that we must follow, but teachers do have opportunities to be creative with their lessons. I, for one, always loved using music, and very big on hands on learning and keeping students engaged and trying to find different ways for them to be motivated and excited, especially my girls in math. I didn't want them to feel like this is not something you can do or this is just for the boys. Math and science was really big for me. Um, but when it came to preparing, absolutely. Um, we had to do everything possible to make sure our students were prepared, be it working with those who were struggling, meeting with them more so often in small groups. But yes, we have to stick with a structured routine, as far as your pacing guides and whatnot, to make sure that we're where we're supposed to be so that our students are getting everything that they need to pass the test. So,
Do the local newspapers publish results?
yes,
They do. Okay.
yes,
And do you
yes.
have any students that opt to not take the test?
Yes, we do. We do
You do.
have those.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
That's become a movement in parts of New York State where we are. And in some cases, 40, 50, or even higher percentage of the kids are not taking the tests.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
like
Wow,
I'm
that's definitely not the norm here.
Right.
Yeah,
It wasn't here either until a few years ago when the Common Core standards kicked in, and
gotcha,
there was an allergic reaction to those here, in
gotcha.
different pockets of the state, for sure.
Okay.
So, but just to go back to what you were saying before about the structure of the coursework and the pacing guides. So, when you were a technology specialist and instructional specialist, so how did your it's a two-part question. How did the
Hmm.
teachers handle now adding a brand new component of
Hmm.
technology into the classroom while still sticking to
Um,
this sort of rigorous pacing schedule? And two, how did you help facilitate that in
mhm.
your role?
My principal at the time, had this smart board, and it was a portable smart board in the building, and no one was using it. I saw it. I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. What is this thing? Can I play with it? And I fell in love with it. And I used it. I integrated it into all my lessons, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. And you could make these games with these clickers, and I just loved that machine. And when he came in to observe me, I was using it in a lesson, and he said,
It worked.
Would
It worked
yeah,
while you
would
got
you be
observed.
yeah, would you be willing?
That's
Yes, the
amazing.
technology actually worked when I was being observed.
Congratulations.
Thank you. He asked, would I be willing to show others? So it went from there, and he spoke to the head of the department, and they were just starting to get these smart boards into the schools and so forth. And so that was sort of like my job, was to help teachers integrate this cool technology into their lessons and get away from the
Mm.
chalkboard.
Hmm.
Um, and it was fun. It was pretty cool. But then the position started to change, where they wanted you to learn more about hardware.
Mm.
So I felt like I was getting further from teaching. So I got out of that. It just felt like this is not for me.
Hmm.
Um, but as far as getting teachers on board, I would say the most challenging teachers were my veteran teachers who are really locked into using that chalkboard and like, how dare you bring this thing in here and tell me I need to write on this instead of
Right.
this.
Right.
Um,
And they have
what's
all
the
their
point?
bins with all their units and all their activities,
Yeah,
and it's
and some of
all
them
yeah.
weren't
Hmm.
comfortable with the computer yet. So
Hmm.
you're bringing in this in addition to I got to learn. So that was a bit of a challenge, but over time it just became the norm. I'm like now it's like a chalkboard. I don't want a chalkboard.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's in every classroom in our schools. They all have smart boards or Promethean boards, depending upon what district you're in.
That's great.
Has your district moved to the one-to-one initiative yet, where or bring your own device? Are there any other kinds of technology, instructional technologies, tools in the room, or
Mhm.
are they simply is the teacher working off the CPU in the classroom?
Let's see, they have student tablets,
Hmm.
the Google tablets. I don't know if
Chromebooks.
yes, the Chromebooks. Um, those are being used. We moved from the laptops to the Chromebooks. They're smaller, lighter, and right now it's mainly used for testing. Sometimes they're used in small groups for various activities. Some teachers love them, some teachers would prefer not to have them.
That's everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
But as someone with an early adopter mindset that you have, clearly you gravitated to the smart board while it was just rolling around the hallway, and became redefined your role in education as a result of that. So where do you see these one-to-ones going, and whether it be the Chromebook or any other tablet? Where do you see all this going on the elementary level, based on from your purview right now as an assistant principal in an elementary school?
I can see them being used more in small groups where students are doing more with their activities online, um, getting away from the paper and pencil. We're already using them for testing. I can remember when there was talk that more and more classrooms would have teachers videoed in and the kids would go
Mm.
into a classroom and it would just be a video. I can remember that talk, but I don't think we'll be doing that. I really don't think we will get rid of teachers. At least I hope not.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do remember that being the talk. Is this the future where kids are going to just go in a classroom and there's going to be a screen and the teacher's going to be talking to them through a screen, or is it going to be all artificial intelligence? Is that where we're going? I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not.
Mark and I both work on the secondary level, and we've been around for 25 years. What what major changes do you notice, if any, in just the elementary students since the technological changes that they've all lived through? Like, do you notice a big difference in how they, I don't want to use the word behave, but how they conduct themselves in school now versus before they had access to all of this?
Well, I could definitely say in general, preferring the tablet and gaming over outdoor play
Right.
and
Okay.
exploration. it seems as though we have to teach them how to play because they spend so much time on a computer. And I found types of games that we used to do with our students. Some of them don't have a clue as to what is double dutch.
Oh my
Double
God.
what is that? I tried to, for instance, get a Dutch team going, and no one knew how to double dutch because they don't go
That's crazy.
outside. They do not go outside.
I mean, even I know double Dutch, and I'm the last person on earth who should be double Dutching.
But it's such an interesting observation
Yeah,
because there was an article that Mark and I saw in the New York Times just about. I think the title was "How We've Ruined Childhood."
yeah, yeah,
Mark, you should definitely post it on the show notes. She's echoing like what you're saying.
mm,
She's saying how we really have hurt children tremendously with it because they don't have the
mm,
ability, and they should just learn how to navigate relationships, and they should
mm.
and utilize their time and be able to overcome obstacles in addition
Yeah,
to just like you said playing double dutch. Or is that what you
yeah,
do? Do you play
yeah,
double
yeah,
dutch?
yeah. And that has become a part of our curriculum
Right.
is teaching them how to socialize.
Even something as simple as who's going to turn the rope and who's going to go first and who's going to go second, and
Yeah,
just resolving those micro conflicts is practice for when the larger conflicts come around, and we're
exactly.
they're being robbed of these little things, and they seem very innocuous and like
Hmm.
it shouldn't really add up to a whole lot, but if you take a whole lot of these little micro situations and compile them, it becomes something really substantial. And
Right.
and you're seeing it on the elementary level. You always you're as an elementary school person, you're always going to see things before we get to see them. So maybe what starts off as a
Yeah,
relatively
yeah,
small issue for you turns
yeah.
into a full blown
Oh,
situation on the
absolutely.
secondary level.
And I have an example with these technology kids not writing as much,
Mm,
um, typing more, writing less. For example, my 20-year-olds, my twin boys, their handwriting is horrible. And there was a time where we focused on manuscript and cursive handwriting.
that's right.
And I look at my son's signature when and I'm just blown away like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this is a signature from a 20-year-old young man. It looks like a first grader, excuse me, just signed their name in cursive. I just was ignorant thinking that it was being taught and just taking for granted, oh, it'll come. But it wasn't taught in school. So I would try to teach them over the summer here and there, but it's just not the same. It's not the same. To this day, I'm constantly getting on them about their manuscript and their cursive handwriting. But that's something that we just don't stress. And some people will say, for what? What we don't need that. That's what some people will say. I beg to differ. Um, but yes, so different things that we placed a lot of emphasis on in the past, we don't place as much emphasis on now.
Are you
But
noticing attention span issues with elementary school students?
I always think back to when I was in elementary school, how busy I was as a child, how active I was as a child. And I look at some of these children and I'm thinking, is it different? Is it different? Is our tolerance different? I don't know. We did play more. We did have longer recess.
And the kids aren't the only ones on the phones. They're going home to
That is true.
households where the parents they have their faces buried in screens
Yeah.
also.
We're not
Um,
talking as much. We're
how
not
many
sitting
restaurants do you
down
go
having
to?
dinner
Right.
together.
How
Yeah.
many times you go to a restaurant and everybody at the table is on the phone?
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
guilty of that too sometimes, which
yeah.
I try not to be.
The norm.
So there's definitely an issue. Yeah, it's becoming in the norm, but not necessarily. It's not a good norm. It's to the
Yeah,
detriment of families and to kids and to the relationships between adults and kids.
exactly.
I know that you use Twitter, and
Yeah.
we're part of the same PLN, thankfully, and that's how I came to know you, and I'm very fortunate for that. What are the strengths and weaknesses, in your opinion, as an educator when it comes to Twitter?
Well, I will say strengths are meeting so many different educators from around the globe. And I really get a kick out of reading the responses to a lot of the questions. Most of the chats, they tend to take place after I've gone to bed. So, I tend to either just scroll in the morning or if I just happen to be up and I may scroll, but I tend to miss a lot of the chats, unfortunately. But I do enjoy reading them and looking at all the responses. It's very interesting being able to learn from so many different people and hearing their different perspectives. And I enjoy that. I love that. The downside, I mean, you have to be careful of what you put out there.
Hmm.
I have had conversations with um, some teachers who I have worked with who did not quite understand as far as taking pictures of
Hmm.
students, understanding that that's your personal page and you
Hmm.
shouldn't take pictures of students and put them on your personal page. Not them not quite understanding that, well, the school Twitter page has those children on their page. Why
Hmm.
can't I have them on my page? That's your
Right.
personal page. Can get you in a lot of trouble. And then those pictures alongside pictures of you hanging out type stuff, having those conversations with them and letting them know that, this is inappropriate. So that access and if you have those public pages, all those eyes on you. A lot of my younger teachers don't seem to understand that if you're gonna have some professional uh, tweets going out, have a professional page.
Right.
And if you
Right.
want a personal page, that needs to be locked. Keep that locked.
Right.
Don't
And
make that
even
public.
then, and even then, it's not really private because it just
Yeah,
takes
that's
one
true.
person
That is so
who
true.
you've granted permission to join you
Yeah,
behind the iron curtain, and then they
yeah,
could just share
yeah,
something out.
yeah. You got
And
to be
that's
so
yeah,
careful.
yeah. I think what you're really speaking about is something that Nick and I have spoken of a number of times. It's just the potency of the internet and how most people just really don't understand it because they're using their thumbs on a tiny little screen, and they
Yeah,
feel like what harm could possibly come of this.
right, right,
It's
right.
just
You
my
have to be
thumbs.
careful. Yeah, yeah. And I have to also remind them, um, as far as, for example, when it comes to politics, be
Mm,
very careful of what you say and
especially in today's
understand.
environment.
Yes, and understand that the children that you serve, their parents may have different views than you do. So you
Mm,
have to be careful because people can be quite vicious. And I've seen professionals say things that they really shouldn't be saying on this platform, and it can get you in a lot of trouble. So yeah, just got to be careful. You can There's freedom of speech, but uh, you got to be careful.
if the state education department in Virginia made you queen for a day,
Mhm.
what changes would you make, and why would you make them?
I plead the fifth.
Good answer. Good answer.
Wait, what happened to the brave Dr. Harris that we had on just a few minutes ago? Who was fearless? She was a tomboy, taking on the boys in the schoolyard.
That
How about I'll
that
give you a different question then?
okay. Well, I
All
can
right.
say this. I can say
Okay.
this. I can say this. Um, Queen for a day. I would love for all of the student loans, as far as the teacher forgiveness program, to be forgiven, period, for all public school teachers. Because you have so many educators, especially in Title I schools, who you would think have qualified for teacher loan forgiveness, but don't. And there's so many who have tremendous debt, student loan debt, and are some of our most magnificent teachers in the classroom. And they're struggling to pay their student loans. It's just, it's sad. It's really sad. And some have served for over 10, 15 years and haven't received
Wow.
a dime from the government.
Oh my God.
So, if I could be queen for a day, I would love to just get rid of all those student loans.
Great answer.
And you were going to give her another question, Nick. Come on.
No, I have to end on that note. That was too good. Thank you so much. Really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
talking with you.
If you'd like to listen to older podcasts of ours, you can find us at Apple Podcasts. And if you are looking for us on the web, it's stateofedpodcast.com, and you'll find links to Dr. Harris's Twitter and Instagram, and also that New York Times article that we alluded to just a while ago. You could also follow us on Twitter at SOE Podcast if you're interested in picking up a copy of Forward Fast, which is the book I just wrote and had published, Making Sense of Education in an Era of Rapid Change. It's available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and wherever books are sold. You could also follow me at Marc Isix or marcisix.com. So again, Dr. Harris, thank you so much for joining us and staying up past your bedtime in Virginia for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Good luck this year. Have a great school year.
Thank you so much.